Now, at this point, Descartes notes in a paragraph I haven't included in the slides that it's hard for him to keep in mind how little he knows. By this point in the process, he's found reasons to doubt everything, okay? Everything that he's believed is based either on the senses or on math and logic, and he's found reasons to doubt all of those things. So at this point, it seems like there's nothing he can be certain of. There's really no solid foundation for any of his beliefs. But he says it's hard for him to keep in mind that radical a position. I mean, if you think about it, that's like a hard way to live and a hard way to think. And it's hard to stay in that mode of full awareness of how little one has any good reason to believe. So in order to help him do that, he is going to imagine something that's a kind of all-encompassing reason to doubt everything that he's doubted up to this point in a more piecemeal way. So he says, accordingly, I will suppose not a supremely good God, source of truth, but rather an evil genius, supremely powerful and clever, who has directed his entire effort at deceiving me. So what he's imagining is an all-powerful, evil God, or evil God-like thing, okay? And this all-powerful, evil God-like thing wants nothing more than to make Descartes wrong about everything that he believes. So everything Descartes believes, the world is actually different from that. And it's possible that this all-powerful evil God is actually just putting ideas into Descartes' head and deliberately putting ideas in that are false. This is at least possible, Descartes says. Okay, I can't rule it out. I don't know for sure that there isn't such an all-powerful evil God. I have no proof that there isn't. And that makes everything else I believe doubtful. So he describes this condition that he's now put himself in as follows. He says, I will regard the heavens, the air, the earth, colors, shapes, sounds, and all external things as nothing but the bedeviling hoaxes of my dreams, with which he, this evil genius, all-powerful evil genius, lays snares for my credulity. That is, snares for my willingness to believe, traps for my willingness to believe. I will regard myself as not having hands, or eyes, or flesh, or blood, or any senses, but as nevertheless falsely believing that I possess all these things. So he's saying, maybe it's false even that I have a body. All those things I believe are false. I will remain, so one way this is sometimes put as, imagine that all of the world you experience is an illusion and that who you are really is a brain in a vat somewhere with tubes stuck into the brain, pumping the brain full of information that seems like the world that you experience. And another related way that this is sometimes imagined is with the case of the Matrix. There was a movie called The Matrix that was put out in the late 90s. Really great movie, recommendable movie if you haven't seen it. But the premise of the movie is that the whole world that we experience, the kind of everyday world, is actually a computer program, a simulation, an illusion, and that the real world is a world where human beings are basically being kept in vats and are being fed information, this kind of false virtual reality information world in their brains. And what happens in the movie is some characters escape from the vats and begin to kind of start a revolution against this this sort of illusory or against this process of exploitation, because in the movie the humans are kept in vats in order to like harvest their body chemicals and energy for a world that's run by robots, kind of additional crazy stuff. The main philosophical point though of the Matrix scenario and of the brain in a vat scenario that I just described is exactly the same as the main philosophical point that Descartes made with his supreme evil genius example in the 1640s. I mean, hundreds of years ago. What Descartes is imagining is a case where everything that I experience and everything that I think is false because it's all pumped into my head by some force that's more powerful than me that feeds me those illusions. In his case, it's an all-powerful evil genius. In the Matrix and brain in a vat cases, it's some other world with machines and my body or brain in a vat being fed information, but it's the same philosophical point, because the question is, how do you know that that's not true? How do you know that everything you experience isn't an illusion? How do you know for sure that this isn't all a virtual reality simulation? Any evidence that you seemingly provide to show that seems to be evidence that's just coming from your senses or your reasoning. And that's exactly what's in question with this scenario. So if you can't rule out these scenarios, if you can't prove that there isn't an all-powerful evil genius, then you actually don't know anything for certain, apparently, okay, at this point in the argument. It seems like you can't know anything for certain. So that's sort of where we are by the end of meditation 1. And at this point, I just would invite you to kind of pause for a minute and reflect. Are you convinced by Descartes' argument up to this point? Do you think really, based on this set of reasons that he's given, yeah, we really can't know anything for certain? Now, at the beginning of meditation 2, Descartes briefly recaps his meditations from the previous day. And he says, I've arrived at a point where I think maybe the only thing that's certain is that nothing is certain. And that's a pretty terrible place to be. He's really concerned at this point, really worried that it's just not possible to know anything for certain, and he's stuck with just kind of floating in this world of opinions, of uncertain opinions, potentially illusion, potentially being wrong all the time, never knowing for sure whether he's right or wrong. And this is really, really troubling to him. And he thinks it ought to be troubling to anybody, because we want to have good reasons for our beliefs. We want to be confident in our beliefs. But he's given us reasons in meditation 1 to not be confident in any of our beliefs, to think that anything we believe could be false. So at this point, he's in a really difficult place. Now, the good news is, he thinks, that very soon in meditation 2, he's going to find a single belief that he believes he can be absolutely certain of. And this single belief, this is what he's been looking for the whole time. It's something that can serve as a foundation for all of his other beliefs. It's one thing, one kind of rock of certainty that he can base everything else on. It's going to take him a little bit of work to find it. He's going to have to root around for a few paragraphs and kind of stumble around in this confused condition he's now in. But eventually he's going to find something that he believes can't be doubted, that can't possibly be doubted, and therefore is absolutely certain and is a foundation, or can be a foundation, for everything else he believes. So what I leave you with now is, what is that thing that he finds? Okay, so I encourage you to read the assigned passage from meditation 2 and try to find out, what is it that he thinks he can be absolutely certain about, and that will then be the starting point of the reconstruction of his knowledge, or the construction of his knowledge on secure foundations.